Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Yejia, and here we do a lot of crochet tutorials. We sometimes do styling. Today we are going to do this very nice, almost like a boat neckline crochet sweater, but the main piece of the sweater is the backless spider web portion. I tried to do some spider webs on my eyes today in theme, but I am not an eyeliner girl. I am not that good at it. But anyways, today I'm going to show you how I created this sweater. I really hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe, leave me a like, comment any questions you might have. But other than that, let's go. In order to make this spiderweb backless sweater, I am using a weight 3 yarn as well as a 4mm hook. The first measurement that you are going to want to measure is how many stitches you are going to need from to cover your front, if that makes sense. I will enter a clip. I feel like it's the easiest to just show you where I'm measuring, what I mean, etc, etc. So I'll show you exactly where I'm measuring. Also, if you hear sirens in the back, I'm really sorry, but I live in a city, so what can you do? So once you measure from side to side to, cover the front portion of your sweater, because again, this is going to be backless, you are now going to create however many chains that you were going to need. For reference, I am chaining 60 to start. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with a knotless slip knot. And in order to do that, I'm going to sort of hook my yarn around like this and then twist it once, and then you kind of hold this twist, and then you go ahead and start chaining. And again, I'm gonna chain 60. Okay, so this is my chain of 60. I am using what is called the spider stitch. I thought I was really funny for using that. Because spiderweb backless sweater, spider stitch, you get it, you get it. Anyways, I thought I was pretty punny, but also I like the drape of this particular stitch. And again, I feel like you can always, if you cannot be bothered to use this stitch, go ahead and just use, single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, you'll be fine. But anyways, I'm using what is known as the spider stitch. And when you are working with the spider stitch, the thing that you want to start off with, chain wise, is just an even number of chains. So that's why I'm going with 60, because it is my measurement as well as an even number. So in order to start the spider stitch, we are going to go into our second chain from our hook. I usually always go through the back loop as well. I'm really sorry if the black yarn makes it kind of difficult to see. I'm hoping against the white background it's not too bad. So in order to start the spider stitch, I'm going to go ahead and kind of twist my work so I'm working into the backs of my chains. And then I'm going to go into the second chain from my hook. I'm going to go under that loop right there, and I'm going to yarn over once, pull up, yarn over again, and pull through 2. So you've just made a single crochet. And then I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to go into that same exact loop that I just worked my first single crochet. I'm going to go into that same loop, yarn over once, pull up, yarn over once, pull through. So basically in that loop, you should have a single crochet, a chain, and a single crochet. And then from here, you're going to skip a chain. So as you can see, that little hump, I'm going to skip that hump, and then I'm going to go into my next hump right here. So I'm going to go right in there. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to give myself one single crochet, give myself one chain, and another single crochet. And again, skipping a hump, going into the next one, giving myself a single crochet, a chain, and then another single crochet. So you're just going to repeat that sequence until the end of your row. And then this is really just like the stitch you are going to continue using. But I'll be back to show you row number 2. This whole sweater is really just going to be a 1 row repeat. But I'll show you where to insert your hook once I get to row 2. Okay, so I am now ready to insert my hook into my last little loop here and put in my single crochet, my chain, and then my last single crochet. Okay, so by the end of row 1, it should be kind of looking like this. A little bumpy, a little lumpy, but yeah. Okay, anyways, you are now going to turn your work. You actually don't make any chains when you turn your work for this. And so we are going to repeat the same exact process of inserting a single crochet, a chain, a single crochet into the same stitch. The only difficult part about this stitch is where you put your hook in. It's gonna be a little complicated. It's gonna take a bit getting used to, I think. It definitely kind of took me a little bit because it's kind of hard to tell if you don't know what you're looking for. So you are going to insert your hook into the chain 1 space. So you're going to insert your hook, chain 1, do a single crochet, chain 1, and then do another single crochet. Now, if you're like me and you're using like black yarn or yarn that's kind of like difficult to see, the best advice that I can give to you is to look for the legs on your stitch. I kind of wonder if actually this black yarn is a little bit too hard to see. Let me actually show you with like a lighter colored yarn. Okay, so I've kind of like worked up a small sample just to show you on a lighter colored yarn what I mean, because I realized that that black is a little bit too hard to see. I wanted to make this also in white, but I'm still kind of unpacking my yarn, and so like I don't have access to a lot of it and I can't find my white yarn, so I'm really sorry about that. But anyways, if you get confused what I mean by like the chain 1 space, totally valid. I was really confused for a while too. So you're gonna wanna look for the legs of your single crochet stitch. They're gonna sort of form a V. So like this is the V of your first single crochet. This is the V of your secondary single crochet. So this is the chain 1 space that I'm talking about, that you are going to insert your hook into. Make a single crochet, chain 1, insert again, and then single crochet. And again, I'll show you again here. So what I like to kind of consider is that I'm gonna work into the chain 1 space that is like in between 2 single crochets. And what I mean by that is that I see the legs of this single crochet, that V right there, and then there's another V right there, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and insert my hook after that V, and I'm gonna go ahead and do my single crochet, chain 1, and then do another single crochet. There's my V, there's my V. I'm gonna go in between, single crochet, chain 1, and another single crochet. V, V, gonna go right in between there, single crochet, chain 1, and single crochet. V, V. I like to kind of like use my hook to sort of, you know, shove that leg of that V aside, insert my hook, and then go ahead and do the single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, V, V, insert hook, single crochet, chain 1, and single crochet. Okay, so that is generally how you do the spider stitch. I will go ahead and link a couple of tutorials that specifically cover the spider stitch in case you're like, I need more help. No worries, I got you. I will link some more video tutorials in my description, but basically I, chained 60 and I'm going to now work the spider stitch all the way up for a while. Okay, so I have completed just about 40 rows of just like straight up spider stitch, no decreases, no increases, nothing like that. It's just like a nice rectangular panel so far. And as for measurements, right now my piece measures just about 13.5 inches across, and then lengthwise we are working with just about 8.5 inches, as you can see. Okay, so from here I am going to slowly start increasing on the sides because I need a little bit more width in order to cover my bust and my shoulders. And so in order to do that, I'm going to show you how I increase. I'm going to be making increases at this edge and then at this edge. In order to make the increase, all I'm going to do is sort of, go back in between the single crochets in that chain 1 gap, and I'm going to go ahead and give myself 1 single crochet, chain 1, same stitch, 1 single crochet, chain 1, then 1 single crochet. So essentially I just gave myself an additional chain 1 and another single crochet in order to increase it. And then for the rest of the row until I get to here, my very last stitch, like the last chain 1 gap space I have here, for the rest of the row I'm just gonna work it as normal. Okay, so now I've reached my very last little space here, in which I'm gonna give myself, single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, chain 1, and another single crochet. And I'm gonna go ahead and turn my work. And you can kind of see at your edge that you have slightly increased. Okay, so when we are working these increases, I made the increases on the previous row, and then I made another row where I didn't do any increases, but I worked into the increases, if that makes sense. So basically, when I'm counting my stitches, I am not counting the chain 1 in between the single crochets. I'm only counting the single crochets as stitches. And because of that, and because of the way that I am increasing my stitches, I am increasing by a total of 4 single crochets, so 4 stitches. And I want to essentially go from my 60 stitches up to 80 total stitches. Okay, so I just want to check in and show you how my first set of increases is looking. So you can see that I've increased by 2 on either side, so a total increase of 4, and then I've done 5 rows of that increase. And now I am ready to make yet another row of increases. So again, in order to do that, I'm gonna go into that first chain space, like usual, and give myself a single crochet, chain 1, another single crochet, chain another one. another single crochet. So I have 3 single crochets in a single chain 1 gap here. And then I'm gonna go ahead and do the rest as normal and then create another increase on this side. So yeah, just wanted to check in and show you sort of like, it's like a regular little, you know, panel, rectangular panel, and then you're gonna start slowly seeing increases in order to cover your bust slash shoulders. And also, like, you can increase this at a slower rate or an increased rate or a decreased rate, just depending on what you need for your sizing. For me, this is what works. So yeah, I will see you when I am done with all of my increases, and I will have 80 stitches across. Okay, as I'm working this, I realize I may not have like explained clearly like the increases, but basically when you like put in that additional single crochet, you like, okay, normally, right, we are going to like group a single crochet, and then go into the gap, right? This one, because you don't have like 2 single crochets to go in like between, you are gonna go, just remember, like, you are going to work your stitches into the chain 1 gap, like the next chain 1 gap that you see. So for this, what I mean by that is that this one, you're only gonna see that first V set, that first, like, those V legs, right? And you're not gonna have like another like secondary single crochet, you know, V set to go in between, but that is where my next gap is, my chain 1 gap. And so I'm gonna go ahead and insert my hook into there and give myself that just regular spider stitch. And then from here, we're working as normal, so you can see like the V, and then we go into the chain gap, right? But when we were working at that increase, we did not have a V chain gap, we had a V chain gap, and then that's where you insert your hook in order to do the increases. So yeah, just wanted to clarify that in case it was a little confusing. Okay, so I've gone ahead and made all the increases that I'm gonna need to make for now. Basically, I increased my work from 60 stitches across to 80 stitches across. And remember that I'm not counting chains as part of my stitch count, only the single crochets. So I showed you how to increase on each side, and every time you increase, you are increasing by 4 stitches. So essentially, like if you look here, I've got 64, 68, 72, 76, and then 80. And then each one I did 5 rows per stitch count. So I did 5 rows of 64, 5 rows of 68, 5 rows of 72, 5 rows of 76. And I did 5 rows of 80, but I actually am going to do just a few more rows because I am sizing this on myself, and I want it to basically have that 80 length from where it hits me all the way up to my shoulders, which is going to be another couple of inches. And I'll be right back and I'll tell you how many rows I completed with the 80. Okay, so final sort of like check-in for the front panel. So I did just about 40 rows of 60 stitches across for this bottom portion, and then I increased by 4 stitches every time I made an increase, and for each increase I did 5 rows of that increase. And then when I got to 80, which was like my final increase number, I went ahead and actually did 10 rows of 80, and then I went ahead and, you know, snipped off my yarn, and then now I'm going to be working on my sleeve panels. I'm going to start working on my sleeve panel. Your sleeve panel is basically just going to be a rectangular panel, no increases, no decreases. using the spider stitch, and my measurements for the panel are 44 stitches across and 90 rows total. And just for reference, I actually finished up one of my sleeve panels already, but I'll measure it. So just as a reference, that is about 9.5 inches width-wise, and then length-wise, we're looking at just about 21 inches and a quarter, a little bit over 21 inches. I did want the sleeve to be quite long because like I kind of want it to have like witchy long sleeve vibes. So again, you can alter the measurements however you need for whatever measurements that you are going to need to alter and fit yourself. I am going to go ahead and start off my rectangular panel, and again, when you're working with the spider stitch, the one thing that you have to keep in mind is that your starting chain should be an even number. And so I'm gonna go ahead and do my little knotless slip knot, hold the knot area, and then go ahead and chain 44. Alright, and just to remind you, I'm going to go ahead and kind of twist my chain, so I'm working through my back loops. And I'm hoping for this to focus so you can see a little bit better. Okay, so again, I'm going to kind of twist my chain, so I'm working into my back loops. I'm going to go ahead and skip my first chain. I'm going to go into the back loop of my second chain and do a single crochet, chain 1, and another single crochet. Sorry if you can hear my dog barking in the back. He thinks he is a very big dog. And then go ahead and skip 1 chain into the back of the next chain, single crochet, chain 1, single crochet. I hope that after doing the front panel, you are very familiar with the stitch at this point, and so you'll have no problem making this rectangular panel, especially because there are no like increases involved. All you gotta do is make a rectangular panel. Okay, so I've finished my sleeve panel, my second sleeve panel, and I have not cut the yarn yet because I'm gonna start attaching it to my front panel. Now, here is my front panel. You are going to want to determine which side is the front versus back for you. This to me looks more like the back. This looks like the front. You might have a differing opinion, and that's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that the back of my front panel is facing me. And it's kind of at an angle right now, and you'll see why. I'm going to bring my front panel up, or my sleeve panel, sorry. And I'm also going to determine, you know, which side is the front versus the back for me. I think that this is going to be the front, so I'm going to go ahead and put this as like my back side. I know that for my sleeve panel I did 44 stitches across, and basically you fold it in half so that the top portion is going to seam onto the top corner of your front panel. So for me that's 22 stitches, so I'm going to just go ahead and count it out for sanity's sake. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22. So it's right there. And I know that that's going to need to be seamed to that top corner. Now from here, the reason why I told you to select your back side of your panels is because I'm going to be doing the slip stitch seam. And the seam, like the side that I make it on, is going to be on the wrong side, if that makes sense. And then, yeah. There are different ways of seaming things together. If you need a little bit more stretch in your seam, I would recommend joining it using a single crochet stitch. If utilizing your hook is too difficult for you, you can also like cut your yarn and then attach it to a needle and then just like sew it together, right? So there's a lot of different ways that you can do this, but I'm gonna personally use the slip stitch seam method just because it's a personal favorite. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. So on my sleeve panel, I finished my 90th row, obviously, and I'm going to chain 1, and I'm basically like turning my work, right? I know that sort of from fitting and also laying things flat, I'm gonna start seaming together my sleeve panel to my front panel at my second set of increases. So if you remember, like, this is the rectangular panel, and then this is the first set of increases. So for me, this is like 64 stitches across, and this is 68 stitches across. So I'm gonna start doing it in the middle row of that portion. And I feel like I've gotten questions about like where to put in your hook or like how to seam, and honestly, sometimes there's really no rhyme or reason for where I put my hook. I really just try, especially when you're going through the sides of, you know, your panels where the stitches are a little less obvious, I just try to put it generally in an area where my hook will go underneath two yarns strands, if that makes sense. Like right here you can see that I have to kind of like separate it, but I'm going under 2 strands of yarn, just because I find that if you only go through one, there tends to be a little bit more gapping. So I would definitely try to go underneath 2 strands of yarn, and then I'm going to go into my very first stitch, and I'm going to yarn over and pull through. And you're not going to work anything up because it's a slip stitch, so just pull your yarn through. Making sure that your tension is not too tight either when you're doing this. So as you see here, I'm only putting my hook underneath 1 on this one. So I'm going to go and try to find another strand of yarn to sort of secure that connection. And again, I don't count my chains in the spider stitch as a stitch. I'm only counting the single crochets. So I'm going to go into my next single crochet stitch, seam together. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and continue slip stitch seaming until I get to this corner, making sure that every few stitches I'm kind of laying my work flat, just to see that like I'm not bunching up too much or I don't have like too much gaps, if that makes sense. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've seamed up that side, and you can see why I told you to do it on the backs of your panels, because you do leave quite an obvious seam. And then if I show you the front, I'll pull that up. If I show you the front, you just get a nice connection right there. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead, retighten my loop up. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to slip stitch the rest of the 22 stitches I have on my sleeve panel, and then I'm going to close it on up. So I'm just doing some slip stitches. When you do slip stitches, make sure your tension is not too tight. I feel like I tend to give that advice out because my tension tends to be quite tight. This is all seamed together, and I have slip stitched the rest of the 22 stitches on my sleeve panel, and this is what it looks like from, you know, the front side. And then from here, what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna flip my work like this so that I'm looking at the inside of my sleeve panel. And again, this orientation more so has to do with if you want to be particular about which side your seam is showing up. Honestly, if you get it the wrong way, it just means that you'll have a more visible seam on the outside, which is not the end of the world. So yeah, but I'm gonna go ahead and flip it so that I am looking again sort of where my obvious seam is. I'm gonna pull that up so I don't lose that, and then I'm gonna go ahead and start slip stitch seaming the sleeve panel together. One thing that I like to do is I like to pin different points, usually like the very end and like a middle part, just to make sure that I'm like, you know, right on track. I'm gonna go ahead and put a stitch marker there, and I'm gonna put a stitch marker here-ish. So yeah, that's more just for like a sanity check that like as I'm seaming it down, I'm making sure that the panel is actually like laying flat, laying good. Okay, so this is where my working yarn is, and I'm going to chain up 1, and then I'm gonna go ahead into my very first sort of side stitch here. Again, it can be a little difficult with the side stitches, or the sides of your stitches, and so the only thing that I really want to highlight is that you should try to go underneath 2 strands of yarn when connecting. Okay, so my sleeve is all stitched together. You can see that there is a very nice little seam right on that edge. And then I'm gonna go ahead and cut my yarn. And you know, just gotta weave in these ends. So now your sleeve is inside out. So this is what it should look like after you've seamed it. You can see that this is where the seam is, but the actual seam is on the inside, so it's a little less obvious. That is technically what I would consider my right sleeve. And then now I'm going to work on my left sleeve. So once my sleeves were attached, I went ahead and tried it on, and I marked out sort of where I would want a back strap to be put in. The strap is so that I can actually connect the spider web up, and I'm not gonna have to like try to fit my head through spider web branches, and instead I just kind of have like a decent collar. So to do that, I went ahead and I chained 52 chains, and I did the regular spider stitch, and I worked up just about 4 rows of 52 stitches, and I ended up connecting it at the points at which I measured. I kind of just like put pins where I wanted that back spider stitch, like that like strip of spider stitches to go, and I ended up just kind of seaming that together at the points that I had marked out. So basically at this point we have a sweater without a back, and instead of a back we just have a strip of 4 rows of spider stitch, just sort of kind of connecting it like shoulder to shoulder to create a neckline, and so it allows us to have somewhere to attach our spider web to as well. At this point I'm going to start showing you how to create the spider web. To create the spider web, I am specifically making 16 like, I don't know what the parts of a spider web are called, but I'm going to be making like 16 like branches from the center. So you can also definitely alter the number of like offshoots that you have, and I'll explain to you how you can change up that number to fit whatever you need. So the first thing that I'm going to do is make a magic circle, magic ring, magic loop, magic something. I use those terms really interchangeably. I'm really sorry about that, but it is what it is. So basically I'm going to grab the end of my yarn like so, and then I'm going to wrap it around and cross my working yarn over my end. And then I'm going to insert my hook, and I'm going to pull up. And I'm going to go ahead and start off by chaining 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And in order to make the spider web, I'm going to be using treble crochets. So let me show you how to do a treble crochet. You're going to yarn over twice. So 1, 2. And then you're going to insert your hook back into your loop, yarn over and pull up. yarn over and pull up and through your first 2 loops, yarn over and pull up through your next 2 loops, yarn over and then pull through your last 2 loops. So that's how you do a treble crochet. And for the first row, we are going to be making half the number of total offshoots that you want, basically. So I'm going to be making 8 treble crochets in total, keeping in mind that this first chain that I made actually counts as my first treble crochet. So that's 1, 2, and then in between treble crochets, I'm going to chain 1. So 1, and then creating another treble crochet. And then as I go, I'm going to start tightening up this circle by pulling on my end. Additionally, I feel like another thing to note is that when you are doing this, I would recommend that you keep your tension fairly loose. I'm somebody that tends to have fairly tight tension, and if you do, you are going to notice that your spider web will start to like kind of curl inwards. So I definitely recommend kind of keeping a looser tension on this. And then after our 8th treble crochet, we're going to chain 1, tighten, tighten, tighten all the way. And then you are going to go into your 4th chain. So you can do 2 different ways of counting this, whichever way is easier for you. You can either start from the bottom and count 4 all the way up, or if you can like remember how many chains in between the treble crochets you've got, then you know how many chains to count backwards from your first like actual treble crochet. So what I mean by that is that I want to go into the 4th chain. So it's either going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to insert my hook into 4. Or because I know that I only did chain 1 between each treble crochet, I'm going to just count 1 chain and then go from there. Going ahead and inserting my hook into that chain and then slip stitching it together. So that's when you just yarn over and pull through both loops. So nice. You have now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then remember that this is the half the number of actual like branches you're gonna have shooting from the center of your spider web. So the next row we are going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we are going to make a treble crochet into our first little gap we have between stitches. So that is 1, chain 1, and then you are going to do a treble crochet into the previously worked treble crochet. It's like actually into the stitch. Chain 1, and then again you're going to go into the in-between gap. Chain 1, treble crochet into the actual treble crochet stitch, chain 1, and just repeat. So you can see that by doing this method we are essentially increasing the number of like branches on that spider web that we've got. You can always alter the number of like spiderweb branches that you want. I really don't know what they're called, but you get it. And this is my last double or treble crochet that I'm going to work into the gap here. And then go ahead and chain 1. And then again, you can either count 4 from the bottom of your chain, so 1, 2, 3, 4, or because we know that we only did chain 1 gaps, like in between our actual stitches, you can just count backwards and know that that's 1, So you skip that one and you go into the next one. And slip stitch it all together. So far you should be looking like this. And so for every row hereafter, we are going to be adding an additional chain for our beginning chain and then an additional chain in between stitches. So for row 3, we are going to be doing 6 starting chains. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm really trying to keep a very loose tension, which is why my hook keeps slipping off. But from here, we're going to be working, oh, also another thing to note is that we have made the total number of like offshoots that we need now. And so we're only going to be working into the treble crochets and not in between in the gaps. So I'm gonna go into my actual treble crochet stitch there. And I'm gonna make my treble crochet. And then this time, I'm gonna chain 2 in between stitches. So we're just going to keep increasing and keep creating our spider web until you have a spider web that is big enough to cover your back. Okay, so in total, I did my first row, second row, third, fourth, fifth, six total rows. And just to recap, I explained to you how I did my first row, my second row, and then for my third row, I chained an initial chain of 6 with 2 chains in between each stitch. Then I did 7 with 3 stitches in between, 8 stitches with 4 in between, and then 9 with 5 in between. So this is what I have so far. Now I'm honestly just kind of eyeballing about where I want this to connect, but I think I want to put it probably like somewhere here and then here. If you guys can see that. I'm just trying to make it like pretty equidistant from like the corner here where my strip ends. So I went ahead and kind of marked about where I think it would be just about even. Yeah, so for me, from like the edge of like the strip for my back portion, it's gonna be about 4 1/4 inches inwards. So I'm gonna go ahead, I've chained 5 already, and then I'm gonna go and slip stitch into my stitch marker here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take that out so I can actually slip stitch it. And then basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch until I get to this marker here, and then create another chain of 5 in order to connect this offshoot, branch, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so I've reached my stitch marker and I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch into where I put my stitch marker. I'm going to go ahead, take that out. And I'm going to give myself a chain of 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to go ahead and into my next treble crochet here, and I'm going to slip stitch that right on. So as you can see, it is starting to connect our spider web to the rest of our sweater. And from here, I am going to go ahead and slip stitch until I get to our next treble crochet stitch. So you can see like this isn't actually laying super flat, but again, this is something that like you are probably gonna have to try on as you are making these connections in order to see like how short or how long you want your chains to be. And then once you figure out like one side of your chains, the other side is just going to be, you know, the same number of chains, because because you do want it somewhat symmetrical just so that the web is kind of pulling evenly. And then from here, I actually want this connection to be like quite tight, quite short. So I'm going to chain 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to go into my corner here, going ahead and slip stitching that together. So me personally, I just went ahead and created a long chain in order to just sort of like weigh down the bottom. Another option too, you could always do another sort of small strip of spider stitch here and then connect your offshoots there as well. This is definitely like a kind of more delicate option to do it, but this is the way that I want to do it. So yeah, essentially at this point, you just need to weave in your ends and you're done. Okay, here is the final product. I really love how it turned out. From the front, it really just kind of looks like a pretty standard, you know, black sweater with like a pretty little neckline. But from the back, how's it looking? How's it looking? I absolutely love this backless spiderweb detail. I feel like it's very Halloween, it's very appropriate for October, and yeah, honestly, I've really been loving backless tops these days, mostly because I feel like it has a lot of utility. Like you can wear it in the front and then you can wear it back as well. But yeah, I hope you guys liked this tutorial. If you have any questions, make sure to leave them for me in the comment section. I try my best to answer most questions. If you guys liked this tutorial, make sure that you subscribe, like, comment, share with your friends. And yeah, I hope you guys are having a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye!